Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silvermont, and E3 2018 is just around the corner. The largest gaming event of the year. Been watching it live for more than a decade, and for damn most of those 10 years I've been hoping for the same things. Maybe this year is the year. But let's talk a little about what we're hoping to see, expecting to see, and so forth. By and large, we'll restrict this to the big three: Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. There isn't really a unified PC conference after all, just a weird thing that never really turns out to be very good or interesting. EA and the other large publishers often have their own conferences, which can be worth watching, however. Then after the show is good and done, we'll have a wrap up and review. Incidentally, E3 this year is June 12th through 15th, and I'll probably be doing a sort of live viewing party in Discord if you're in the server. Is it me, or have Microsoft kind of fallen behind the last few years? They endlessly drag on and cancel games just like Sony used to, but at least Sony would get some games released. There hasn't been a game that's made me want to get my Xbox out for ages. Well, I say out, my Xbox is out, I just haven't had any cause to turn it on. Gears of War 4 was... and Halo 5? It was alright, but nothing mind-blowing. What would I like to see? I honestly don't know. That Scalebound has been brought back from the dead? That from now on every Xbox game will be on Windows as well with crossplay, so I don't need to keep my Xbox at all? I think they made some decent strides on that front, but what do I expect to see? Crackdown 3 for the 50th year in a row, as that game is definitely not vaporware. And it's been a few years since the last Halo, so maybe Halo 6? I'll be interested to see in which direction they take that, as I'm not sure what the general consensus of 5 was. Personally, I didn't like the new Spartans at all. It somewhat suffered the same problem as Gears of War 4 had. When you establish characters that people enjoy, why would you continue the franchise with new, excessively bland and boring characters whilst retaining the old characters? In Gears 4, I didn't care about any of the new characters, I just wanted to play as Marcus Phoenix, who was still around and fighting anyway. In Halo 5, I didn't care about Locke or the new Spartans when Chief was there, still fighting. Either go all the way, or don't bother. Either set it like 100 years in the future with no Master Chief, no Marcus Phoenix, or just let us play as them if they're still around. Half-assing it in this way is just dumb. It shows that they don't really have any faith in their vision. Hopefully they'll have some surprise announcements that actually turn out to exist and turn into real games. I know some people are excited for that Sea of Thieves game, and I'm kind of interested, but I struggle to see how the actual gameplay is going to work in it, you know? Like, looking at videos of them showing it off as a demo, it looks cool, but then when I actually think about it, I'm like, how am I going to sit down and actually play this? What is the sense of progression? What is an average play session going to look like, you know? I'm sure it will all sort itself out, but those are questions I do have. Having fared a little better than Microsoft, Sony have still fallen into their own trap of making a bunch of games that all look virtually identical, comprised of the gritty, realistic graphics in a third-person game where we walk around as a 30-something dude who looks at dramatic scripted things going on around them in a 5-minute E3 demo. The Last of Us, Uncharted, that zombie motorbike biker game thing. Those games do nothing for me. If I wanted to walk slowly through a scripted encounter, I would go to a haunted house or something. What do I think we'll be seeing? The Last of Us Part 2, and more games of that nature. Probably some mumbling about VR, indie, and portable that I'll zone out for as it doesn't interest me, followed by some, look how great value PlayStation Plus is, woo. I also wouldn't be surprised if we see a little of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Overall, I'm not expecting much, but what would I like to see? Dragon's Dogma 2 or Devil May Cry 5 primarily. Not really as exclusives, just this is where I imagine they would be spoken about more. There's a good chance they'll want to talk about something Soulsy, but I don't expect it to take center stage. The Dark Souls and Bloodborne games are big, but they're not really multi-million sellers in the same way that many other games are. Like, yeah, Bloodborne has probably sold, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 million copies by now, but it's been out for a few years. Games at E3 that they want to show on the stage are probably games that they're hoping are going to sell like 5 million in the first year. Maybe they'll want to speak more about Shadows Die Twice or some sort of exclusive thing they've got cooking. Demon Souls 2, Bloodborne 2, Demonborn, Blood Souls. I'll be honest, I don't really care. I used to be the world's biggest Smash Bros fan, but I don't see myself buying a Switch even though there's a few okay looking games on it. I've said it before, but at this point I wish Nintendo would just give up making hardware, because I hate their hardware and I have for years. I don't like the Wii U, I don't like anything about its controller or its interface or any of its features. I didn't like the Wii for the same reason, and I've never used the Switch, but it looks like it has exactly the same issues I had with the other two consoles. They make some fun games, but to me they feel like they're being held back by their wacky gimmick consoles and handhelds. And people say, oh yeah, but they managed to get Smash Bros running at 60 FPS, and it's like, sure, that's good, but where's the decent online? It's not there. Where's an actual decent controller? It's not there unless they release their 18th GameCube adapter so we can keep using a controller from like 20 years ago almost. But that's just my thinking. I want them to ditch making consoles and just focus on games and putting them on proper platforms. I'm sure they'll announce some stuff that will make people screech whilst recording themselves screeching and running headfirst into people with enough force to break their nose, and then uploading it to YouTube so everyone can see their epic and not at all exaggerated reactions. I'll be honest, every time a new Dark Souls game is announced, I punch a hole through the planet and throttle at least 4 rare animals. On a less sarcastic note, they've had Mario and Zelda, so maybe they'll be focusing more on Metroid Prime, Pokemon, Smash Bros for the next year or two. There was talk about a home console Pokemon game, I believe. That could be pretty cool, but it really depends on how they kind of spin it. But a sort of big open world console Pokemon game, yeah, that would be like really fun. I'm sure everyone who is a fan of Pokemon wants something like that. In conclusion, you know, I would love a new Ninja Gaiden game. Shame Itagaki left Tecmo. He's not really done much since, other than that bizarre Devil's Third game that didn't look very good. I hope he comes out with a new project, as he made some of my favourite games for the last decade. On the other hand, I know Itsuno, the director of Devil May Cry 3, 4 and Dragon's Dogma, has been working on something for quite a while, and now that Capcom have released Monster Hunter World, I'm really hoping for an announcement. Devil May Cry 5 or Dragon's Dogma 2 would be great. But hey, I'll be interested whatever it turns out to be. Maybe we'll finally see something about Deep Down. I would rather have Dragon's Dogma 2 than, you know, Deep Down or Devil May Cry, seeing as Deep Down, yeah, it looked alright, and Devil May Cry, we've already had like 3 really good Devil May Cry games. Dragon's Dogma had so much potential. Like, I have never played a game before like Dragon's Dogma and thought, there is so much untapped potential here for what could be. Most of the other games I really love, like say Dark Souls, they almost reach their pinnacle or their potential. Yeah, Dark Souls has a few issues here and there, like the second half of the game and netcode, backstabbing, blah blah blah, but for the most part I feel like Dark Souls hit where it needed to hit. Dragon's Dogma though, it was like playing a demo for a game that you know could just be absolutely perfect, mind-blowing, and exactly what you want. That dream game. But what about other games? Hopefully there'll be some nice new projects revealed that nobody was anticipating. And it's been a pretty long time since we've heard anything about Resident Evil 2 Remake, right? I mean, I'm really interested in how they're going to do that. Are they going to make it like the first remake, where it's essentially the same game, just with, you know, nicer graphics and stuff? Or are they going to try and modernize Resident Evil 2? Are they going to give it a first-person camera, a third-person camera, or is it going to say top-down? I'm really curious. Now, I know some people probably hate this idea, but I would love if it was a third-person one, like 4, 5, and 6. But either way, I'm going to be interested in how they handle it. In the past, I would have been excited to hear about a new mainline Resident Evil, but I did lose interest with the switch to first person. I know they had mixed reaction, but I loved Resident Evil 4, 5 and 6 with their wacky over-the-top action. I've seen the majority of Resident Evil 7, and whilst it looks like a completely fine game, and good if that's what you're into, it's just not what I'm into. But who knows where Resident Evil 8 is going to be headed. And one of the big games I was interested in last year that I can remember was Anthem. Maybe we'll hear more about that this year. Might be cool, but I don't know, it's BioWare and they've had a kind of spotty record lately. I'm hoping they're going to pull it together with Anthem and they're going to release something great that I have as much fun with as I did Mass Effect 1 and 2. I think those were the last games from BioWare I really thoroughly enjoyed. Well, either way, let's reconvene after E3 and see what happened. Till then.